Have you ever felt that that pull towards some kind of ancient wisdom, a profound truth just waiting to be unearthed?
Definitely. Like there are these brilliant minds from centuries back.
Exactly. Truly groundbreaking, yet somehow still kind of overlooked.
It happens surprisingly often.
Well, that's really why we're here on the deep dive. Our whole mission is to sift through these fascinating sources, pull out the vital insights, and basically transform all that information into clear understanding for you.
Like a shortcut to getting genuinely well informed.
Precisely. And maybe finding a few surprising facts along the way. Today, we're actually continuing quite an extraordinary journey.
Ah, yes. Suhrawardi.
This is the second deep dive in our Wisdom Unveiled series. It's part of a, well, 13-episode exploration into the really profound philosophical and mystical world of Shihab al-Din Yahya ibn Habash Suhrawardi.
The founder of Illuminationist philosophy, yeah.
Right. And our insights today, they're drawn from a really rich collection of audio conversations from Marifat, which feature respected Iranian philosophers Dr. Ibrahim Dinani and Dr. Esmail Mansouri Larijani.
Very important figures for understanding this tradition.
Absolutely. Just a quick but important note before we really dive in. This deep dive is a translation and reproduction of conversations with Iranian philosophers like Dr. Ibrahim Dinani and Dr. Esmail Mansouri Larijani. Some concepts or details may not be fully conveyed. We apologize in advance for any discrepancies.
It's always a challenge with deep philosophical concepts across languages.
It really is. It's quite striking, isn't it? Even after immersing myself in Suhrawardi's work for this, he still has this enigmatic quality.
Yeah.
Almost like his brilliance is still sort of poised just beyond the main spotlight. What do you think really accounts for that paradox?
It is uncanny, certainly. Suhrawardi was an extraordinarily unique thinker. I mean, a truly innovative sage. And it's genuinely staggering when you think about it. 800 years since his martyrdom in Aleppo.
800 years?
And he remains, well, largely unknown to so many people. And he died so young, didn't he? Only 36 or maybe 38?
So young.
He's often known by the title Sheikh al-Maktoul, which translates as the slain master. But the philosophers in these source conversations, they argue quite passionately that Sheikh al-Shahid, the martyr master, is a far more fitting title.
Martyr master.
Yes, for someone who, as they strongly contend, really died for divine wisdom itself.
Why was that distinction between slain master and martyr master so vital for these scholars? What's the weight behind that shift?
Well, because it fundamentally shifts the perception, doesn't it? From someone who was simply, killed to someone who actively sacrificed their life for truth, for a higher ideal. It elevates his legacy significantly.
Right, it reframes his death entirely.
Exactly. And consider this contrast. You have philosophers like Avicenna or later Mulla Sadra. Their major works became standard texts, studied for generations in seminaries and universities.
Foundational reading.
Absolutely. But Suhrawardi's seminal work, Hikmat al-Ishraq, which means illuminationist wisdom, it rarely functioned as a primary textbook in the same way. Students didn't typically start their philosophical journey directly with his main writings.
Huh. But wait, you said he was widely quoted?
That's the paradox. Later thinkers constantly quoted him, engaged with his ideas, built upon them. Mulla Sadra himself wrote a major commentary on Hikmat al-Ishraq, yet the book itself wasn't the starting point. It's a really remarkable historical quirk, if you will.
So widely cited, deeply influential in that sense, yet not directly foundational in the curriculum. That is a fascinating twist. And it really highlights just how distinctive Suhrawardi must be. It makes me want to, get right to the core of his philosophy.
That's instinct.
He specifically chose Hikmat al-Ishraq as the title for his magnum opus. So what exactly is the foundational meaning of hikmat, or wisdom, for him? And crucially, how does it truly differ from falsafa, the word we typically just translate as philosophy?
That is precisely the right starting point, because his choice of hikmat is anything but casual. It's deeply deliberate. You see, the term falsafa,
which comes from Greek.
Yes, from the Greek philosophia, meaning literally lover of wisdom. It strongly implies a continuous, often seemingly endless rational pursuit of knowledge. Grappling with ontology, existence, the big questions. Socrates famously called himself a lover of wisdom, right?
Right, implying he didn't possess it fully.
Exactly, suggesting that wisdom itself is something you strive for, you chase, but perhaps never fully definitively possess. An ongoing quest.
An ongoing quest, okay. So how does hikmat differ?
Right. Now, hikmat has very deep Islamic and Quranic roots. God himself is called al-Hakim in the Quran, the All-Wise.
Ah, okay.
So, like falsafa, Hikmat definitely involves rigorous rational investigation. Suhrawardi was a master logician. But for him, Hikmat incorporates two absolutely crucial dimensions that are often, let's say, missing or less emphasized in the purely philosophical approach as understood from the Greek tradition.
Two dimensions, what are they?
First, there's the concept of ithquan.
Ithquan.
Yes, it means something like firmness, precision, being utterly well-established. A wise thought, for Suhrawardi, isn't just a clever idea or an interesting speculation. It must be completely solid, free from any illusion or mere guesswork. It has to be backed by incredibly robust arguments.
Wow. Okay, so intellectual rigor pushed to its limit.
To its absolute limit. Think of God as al-Hakim. His creation is seen as perfect, flawless, precise. That same quality must infuse true wisdom.
That level of intellectual precision sounds incredibly demanding. How did Suhrawardi then connect this firmness with real-world application? Or is it purely intellectual?
That leads directly to the second dimension,
Yeah.
practical embodiment.
Yeah.
A true Hakim, a genuinely wise person, isn't just someone who thinks deep thoughts in isolation, locked away in a study. They live by those fundamental insights. Their actions, their character, their entire way of being must reflect that profound understanding.
So it's not just knowing, it's being.
Exactly. Wisdom, for Suhrawardi, isn't merely known in the abstract. It's embodied. It connects thought and action directly, inseparably. For him, a true Hakim manages to combine this rigorous rational thinking with an undeniable lived connection to the divine. They lead a life that is profoundly wise, deeply rational, and intensely spiritual all at once. So Hikmat really transcends mere intellectual perception. It's more like a complete envelopment of truth imbued with a divine, luminous spirituality.
It's an integrated way of knowing and being, where light meets logic.
Beautifully put, where light meets logic.
That clarifies the depth of Hikmat wonderfully. It's not just thinking about truth, but participating in it, living it, rooted in the divine. And, speaking of roots, this brings us to a bigger historical question. We often hear the story, the standard narrative, really, that philosophy originated solely in Greece. How did Suhrawardi view that? Did he challenge it?
Oh, he absolutely did. That common Western narrative, that philosophy began and flourished exclusively in Greece, with everyone else essentially being, intellectual latecomers or just borrowers, that's a view Suhrawardi and indeed many other Eastern sages strongly challenged.
So they saw it differently.
Very differently. They argued quite compellingly, I think, that ancient Iran was also a major cradle of profound wisdom, and crucially, that there was always significant cultural and intellectual exchange happening between Greece and Persia. It wasn't just a one-way street of ideas flowing west to east or vice versa.
Right, a more complex, interconnected intellectual history, not just isolated pockets.
Exactly. And Suhrawardi highlighted a key distinction here. He pointed out that many pre-Socratic Greek philosophers often leaned towards polytheism, and their focus was frequently on the natural material world. What is the fundamental substance? Air, fire, water.
The classic pre-Socratic questions.
Right. Ancient Iranian sages, on the other hand, Suhrawardi insisted, were largely monotheistic. This was a crucial difference for him. He explicitly mentioned figures from Persian tradition, names like Buzar-Jamer, Jasaf, even Zoroaster himself as being monotheists.
Interesting.
And he was careful to differentiate them from what he considered deviated sects, things like Magian disbelief or Manichaean atheism, as he termed them. He saw those as distortions.
So he saw himself reclaiming an authentic ancient tradition.
Precisely. Suhrawardi saw himself fundamentally as a reviver of this hidden ancient Iranian monotheistic wisdom tradition, which he then interpreted and integrated through the illuminating lens of Islamic revelation, especially the Quran.
Okay, so not just reviving, but reinterpreting in light of Islam.
Yes, and his view of someone like Avicenna is interesting here. He saw the peripatetic or Aristotelian philosophy, which is common in many of Avicenna's more public, widely known works, as being primarily Greek-influenced.
So he was positioning his own illuminationism, his Ishraq, as tapping into a different, perhaps older, monotheistic stream of thought originating in Iran.
That's a good way to put it. But, and this is important, Suhrawardi held immense respect for Avicenna. He didn't just dismiss him as purely Greek. No. In fact, he believed Avicenna also possessed a deeper, more esoteric, Ishraqi-style wisdom. He thought it was hinted at in Avicenna's less public writings, separate from his more famous logical philosophical works like The Cure.
Like hidden depths even in Avicenna.
Exactly. And for Suhrawardi, His own Hikmat al-Ishraq was, in his view, far more deeply compatible with core Islamic principles. He himself was a profound master of the Quran, meticulously integrating its verses and insights directly into the fabric of his philosophy.
This whole idea of light is just so central to Suhrawardi to Ishraq. How did he establish that light nur was a primary philosophical concept, especially, in contrast to existence, which seems to have been more of the Greek focus? This is where it gets really compelling, I think.
It really is.
Yeah.
What's truly groundbreaking here, and perhaps his most distinctive contribution, is Suhrawardi's assertion that light, nur, was first discussed as a primary foundational philosophical concept in Iran, not in Greece, where the main focus was on existence, wujud.
Right.
This forms the absolute core difference between Suhrawardi's philosophy, summed up as the primacy of light, al-Nur, and the later very influential philosophy of Mulla Sadra, known for the primacy of existence, wujud.
Okay, so light versus existence as the fundamental reality.
Precisely. Now, interestingly, Mulla Sadra himself, when defining existence, acknowledged that existence cannot be logically defined in terms of genus and difference. Why? Because it's the most self-evident of all things. He called it abda al-badiyat. It's simple, not composed of parts you can break down.
It just is. You can't define it using simpler terms because there aren't any.
Exactly. And Mulla Sadra's famous description of existence was that which is manifest by itself and makes others manifest.
Manifest by itself and makes others manifest.
Okay. You've captured it perfectly. And Suhrawardi, coming earlier, essentially contended that Mulla Sadra's own definition exactly describes light.
Ah, the description fits light better.
Perfectly, according to Suhrawardi. Light is inherently luminous. It reveals itself. You don't need something else to see light. And crucially, it makes all other things visible. If light were absent, nothing would be seen, nothing perceived. It's the condition for manifestation.
That makes intuitive sense.
And this concept, for Suhrawardi, extends beyond just physical sensory light. It includes intellectual light. Understanding, perception, intellection itself, these are all forms of illumination. When you grasp a difficult concept, it's like a light goes on, right? It becomes illuminated for you, clear and distinct.
That's a very powerful analogy. My mind is already connecting how central that concept of illumination is to all forms of comprehension, really.
And this leads directly, inevitably, to Suhrawardi's concept of Nur al-Anhar, the light of lights.
Which is God.
Which is God. He argues that existence, as a concept, is ultimately just that, a concept, perhaps even a conventional one, itibari, not the ultimate fundamental reality. The ultimate reality is light.
And he found support in the Quran.
Absolutely. He points out that the Quran itself supports this view, most famously in the verse of light, stating, Allah is the light of the heavens and the earth. Allah Nur al-Samawat was al-Ard. It doesn't primarily use terms like necessary existent, wajib al-wujud, which became common in later philosophy influenced by Avicenna.
Interesting distinction.
God, for Suhrawardi, is self-manifesting light. We perceive him through his light, not by inferring his existence from other things like the design of the universe. His light is the very medium of all perception and understanding. If that ultimate light of truth wasn't there, wasn't self-shining, we wouldn't understand or perceive anything at all.
So it flips the usual argument. It's not about trying to prove God's existence through his creations, but realizing that our very perception of those creations, our very understanding, is only possible through his light, which is God manifesting himself.
You've got it precisely. And what's truly remarkable, almost startling, is that even Western philosophers, much later, like Hegel, surprisingly acknowledged something similar. Hegel wrote that spirituality first entered history through ancient Iran. Why? Precisely because of their emphasis on light as a metaphysical principle.
Hegel said that. Wow.
Yes. And for Suhrawardi, of course, the ultimate, most perfect manifestation of this divine light is found in the Quran itself. This core concept of light deeply influenced later figures, even those not strictly Ishraqi. We mentioned Ibn Sina, Avicenna. Despite being largely a peripatetic philosopher, he wrote a commentary on the Quranic verse of light.
Even Avicenna felt compelled to address it.
And even Imam al-Ghazali, who was famously a staunch critic of many philosophical schools, composed his beautiful and profound work, Mishkat al-Anwar, the Niche of Lights, specifically exploring the depths of that same verse of light. It just shows the pervasive impact of this light-centric worldview.
Wow, that's truly profound. It really sounds like Suhrawardi is saying that the ultimate source of all understanding, all clarity, all reality itself is light, and that ultimate light is God. So what does this mean for how one actually attains this wisdom, this hikmat? Is it purely intellectual study, reading Hikmat al-Ishraq, or is there more to it?
That raises a absolutely critical question for Suhrawardi's whole project.
Yeah.
For him, wisdom, true Hikmat, emanates first and foremost from the Quran and the teachings of the al-Bayt, the Prophet Muhammad's household. That's the primary source.
Okay, the revealed sources.
Yes, but he also acknowledged the wisdom found in Greek and ancient Iranian traditions, as we discussed, interpreting them through an Islamic lens. And significantly, he acknowledged Islamic Sufi mystics as fellow travelers on the path towards the spring of light.
So multiple streams flowing into this ocean of wisdom.
Exactly. But how did Suhrawardi himself gain his wisdom? He explicitly states in the introduction to Hikmat al-Ishraq that much of it was acquired not just through books or argument, but through intuitive realization. The term he uses is doc, which means tasting, direct experience.
Doc, tasting the truth directly.
Precisely. Attained in solitude, through intense spiritual practices and stations, maqamat. For Suhrawardi, there was absolutely no separation, no conflict between philosophy, rigorous reason, istidlal, and mysticism or intuitive knowing, irfan.
They have to go together.
They must go together. A true Hakim, in his view, combines both penetrating intuitive insight and compelling rational argument. And Suhrawardi himself really exemplified this fusion, which is astonishing given his tragically short life, his extensive travels, and how much he managed to write.
So it's a unified path, not just knowing something abstractly, but experiencing it, tasting it, and being able to articulate it rationally and ultimately embodying it.
Precisely. And this leads directly to the practical requirement. For Suhrawardi, purifying the heart and soul is absolutely paramount. It's not optional.
Purification. How so?
Well, he famously advised, and this is quite a statement, that anyone who hasn't undertaken a 40-day spiritual retreat in Arben shouldn't even attempt to study his Hikmat al-Ishraq.
Wow. A 40-day retreat as a prerequisite? That's intense.
It shows how seriously he took the preparation.
Yeah.
This aligns perfectly with a saying attributed to Imam Jafar al-Siddiq. Wisdom is a light that God casts into the hearts of whomever he wills, often interpreted as purified hearts.
The heart needs to be clean to receive the light.
Exactly. And think of the Quranic verse often quoted in this context. He purifies them and teaches them the book and the wisdom. Yuzakahim wa ya'lamuhum al-kitaba wa al-hikmah. Purification, tazkiyah, comes before the teaching. True wisdom, Hikmat, cannot be attained without this spiritual purification, cleansing the self from the ego, base desires, illusions, attachments.
It's like preparing the very vessel, polishing the mirror to be able to receive and reflect the light.
Indeed. Beautifully put. As the great mystic Rumi, who came later but was deeply influenced by this stream of thought, put it poetically, wisdom is the true sustenance of the heart. And it's a light derived ultimately from the light of lights.
Sustenance for the heart.
Yes. Every form of perception we have, whether it's sensory seeing, intellectual understanding, or imaginative vision, is fundamentally an act of illumination in Ishraq. And all of it occurs within the all-encompassing light of God. God is self-manifesting light. Any inability we have to perceive him lies not in the light itself, but in the observer's own deficiencies, our own veils.
The problem, as they say, isn't with the sun, it's with our eyes, or the clouds blocking our view.
Precisely. The light is always shining.
Okay, let's maybe unpack this a bit further. We've established that Suhrawardi's Illuminationism is centered on this concept of light, Nur, and requires purification. But how does his unique brand of Illuminationism differ from, say, concepts we might encounter in Western philosophy? You know, figures like Bergson with his intuition, or maybe even Plato, Plotinus with the one, and perhaps even modern ideas about religious experience. Is it the same thing, just with different terms?
That's a really crucial distinction to make. Suhrawardi's unique brand of Ishraqi illuminationism differs significantly, I would argue, from many of the Western figures you mentioned, and especially from some modern, more subjective notions of religious experience.
Oh, so what's the key difference?
I think the single most defining characteristic of Suhrawardi's philosophy, which sets him apart, is that his intuitive insights, his doc, his illuminations, they were never presented just on their own, as subjective claims you just have to take or leave. No, they are always presented alongside rigorous rational proofs, Burhan. This synthesis, this insistence on backing up spiritual realization and intuitive vision with compelling logical argumentation is what truly distinguishes him and makes his work so uniquely powerful and intellectually satisfying even today.
So you get both sides of the coin.
Absolutely. You won't find a single claim certainly not in Hikmat al-Ishraq, that isn't meticulously backed by a robust rational argument.
Yeah.
He demands that the reader engage both their intuitive faculty and their critical reason.
So it's not just a description of a mystical experience, but one that is framed within and defended by a coherent rational system. That combination does seem incredibly rare.
It truly is, and that's why he stood out, and perhaps why he was also seen as threatening by some. And, it's important we remember, circling back briefly, that Suhrawardi's martyrdom at such a tragically young age, as we noted earlier, it was, according to the sources we're drawing on, the tragic result of dogmatic and narrow-minded individuals, certain jurists as rulers, who simply couldn't grasp, or perhaps couldn't tolerate, his luminous thought. They resisted the very unity he embodied and taught, the unity between profound spiritual wisdom and uncompromising rigorous reason.
A martyr for that integrated
A
vision.
martyr for Hikmat, yes.
This deep dive has truly unveiled so much about Suhrawardi's vision. For him, Hikmat is clearly far from just intellectual gymnastics or abstract theorizing. It's this really profound, inner, intuitive reception of truth talk imbued with divine light, Nur, originating ultimately from God, the light of lights, and critically requiring deep purification of the self and then the living embodiment of that truth in one's actions and being. It really is a truly integrated vision of wisdom.
It is indeed a complete path. And as you reflect on Suhrawardi himself, the man behind the philosophy, it's truly remarkable, isn't it, that he achieved such profound insights, such mastery of the Quran and complex philosophical traditions, Arabic, Persian, Greek, and such a deep spiritual connection, all by the age of 36 or 38 when he was martyred.
It's almost unbelievable.
That youth itself is, I think, a powerful testament to how divine wisdom, Hikmat, can manifest sometimes unexpectedly, powerfully, through individuals who are deeply connected to its source, illuminating concepts and realities in ways that, frankly, we're still unpacking and learning from today, 8 centuries later.
That's a perfect final thought for you, the listener, to consider. The enduring power of a wisdom that transcends time, and in Suhrawardi's case, radiates from a figure whose profound insights, tragically cut short, we are still exploring. Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive today as we continue to unveil the luminous and perhaps still slightly hidden legacy of Suhrawardi in our Wisdom Unveiled series.
We genuinely hope his radiant perspective can maybe shed some light on your own understanding and journey.
Until next time, stay curious.